The elves, being very merry, began to sing a song round the river door. Some had actually gone to haul on the ropes, which pulled up the portcullis at the water gate so as to let out the barrels as soon as they were all afloat below. Down the swift dark stream you go, back to lands you once didn't know. Leave the holes and caverns deep. Leave the northern mountains steep where the forest wide and dim stoops in shadow gray and grim float beyond the world of trees. Out into the whispering breeze past the rushes, past the reeds, past the marshes, waving weeds. Up from near and pull at night. Follow stars that leap up the heavens cold and steep. Turn when down comes over land, over rapid, over sand. South away and south away. Seek the sunlight and the day. Pass to pasture, back to mead. When the night keen on and oxen feed. Back to the garden of hills where the berries swell and fills. Under the sunlight, under the day, south away and south away. Down the swift dark stream you go, back to the lands you once didn't know. Now the last barrel was being rolled to the doors. In despair, not knowing what else to do, a poor little Bilbo caught hold of it and was pushed over the edge with it. Down into the water he fell, splash into the cold, dark water, and with the barrel on top of him. He came up again, spluttering and clinging to the wood like a rat, but for all his efforts he could not scramble on the top. Every time he tried, the barrel rolled round and ducked him under again. It was really empty and it floated light as a cork. Though his eyes were full of water, he could hear the elves still singing in the cellar above. Then suddenly the trapdoor fell to with a boom and their voices fade away. He was in the dark tunnel, floating in icy water all alone, for you cannot count friends that all packed in barrels. Very soon a great patch came in the darkness ahead. He heard a creak of a water gate, of a bubbling and bumping, and mass of casks and tubs all pressing together to pass under the arc and get out into the open stream. He had as much as he could to prevent himself from being hustled and battered to bits. At last the jostling crowd began to break up and swing off, but one by one under the stony arc and away. Then he saw that it would have been no good if he had managed to get astride from his barrel, for there was no room to spare, not even for a hobbit, between its top and the suddenly stooping roof where the gate was. Out they went off under the overhanging branches of the trees on either bank. Bilbo wondered what the dwarves were getting into in their tubs. Some of them that bobbled along at him in the gloom seemed pretty low in the water, as he guessed that those are dwarves inside. I do hope I put lids on tight enough, he thought, but before long he was worrying too much about himself to remember the dwarves. He managed to keep his head above the water, but he was shivering in the cold, and he wondered if he would die of it before the luck turned, and how much longer he was able to hang on, or whether he should risk a chance letting go and trying to swim to the bank. The luck turned on right along the eddying current hurried several barrels close to ashore at one point. Therefore, a while they struck something against a hidden roof. Then Bilbo took the opportunity of scrambling up the side of the barrel while it was held steadily against another. Up he crawled like a drowned rat and lay on top of the spread out to keep balance as best he could. The breeze of cold was better than the water, and he hoped he would not suddenly roll off again when they started off once more. Before long the barrels broke free again and turned and twisted off down the stream and out into the main current. Then he found it quite as difficult to stick on as he had feared. But he found it was quite difficult to stick on as he was feared, but he managed it somehow, though it was miserably uncomfortable. Luckily, he was very light, and the barrel was a big one, and being rather leaky, and had now shipped a small amount of water. All the same it was like trying to ride without bridle stirrups, a round-bellied pony that was always thinking of rolling on the grass. In this way, at last Mr. Baggins came to a place where the trees on either hand grew thinner. He could see the pallor sky between them. The dark river opened suddenly wide, and there it was, joined to the main water of the forest river, flowing down in the haste of the king's great doors. There was a surface that was dancing and broken relationships of clouds and the stars. Then the hurrying water of the forest river swept all the company of casks and tubs away to the north bank, in which it had eaten out a wide bay. This had a shingly store under hanging banks and was walled at the eastern end by a little jutting cape of hard rock. On the shallow shore, most of the barrels were aground, though a few went to bump another stony pair. There were people on the lookout of the banks. They quickly pulled and pushed the barrels together into the shallows, and when they had counted them, they roped them. Was not badly off now. He slipped from his barrel and waded ashore, and then sneaked along to some huts that he could see near the water's edge. He no longer thought twice about picking up a suffer uninvited. He got a chance. He had been obliged to do it for long, and he knew now only too well what it was to be really hungry, not merely politely interested in the dainties of a well-filled larder. He had a cold glimpse of fire through the trees, and that appealed to him was his dripping and ragged clothes clinging onto him, cold and clammy. There is no need to tell much of these adventures that night, for now we are drawing near to the end of the eastward journey and coming to the last and greatest adventure, so we must hurry on. Of course, helped by his magic ring, he got on very well at first, but he was given away in the end by his wet footsteps and the trail of dripping that he left whatever he sweat or sat, and also he began to snivel, and wherever he tried to hide it, he was found by terrifical explosions of his suppressed sneezes. Very soon there was a fine commotion in the village by the riverside, but Bilbo escaped in the woods, carrying a loaf and a leather bottle of wine and a pie that did not belong to him. The rest of the night he had to pass wet, as he was and far from fire, but the bottle helped him to do that, and he actually dozed a little on some dyed dreams, even though the year was getting late and the air was chilly. He woke up in a especially loud sneeze. It was already grey morning, and there was a merry racket down by the river. They were making up a raft of barrels, and the raft elves would soon be steering it off downstream to Lake Town. Bilbo sneezed again. He was no longer dripping, but he felt cold all over. He scrambled down as fast as his stiff legs would take him, and managed just in time to get onto the mass of casks, without being noticed in the general bustle. Luckily, there was no sun at the time, and to cast an awkward shadow, and and for mercy he did not see it again for a good while. There was a mighty push of poles. The elves that were standing in the shallow water heaved and shoveled. The barrels, now all lashed together, creaked and fretted. "This is heavy road," some grumbled. "They float too deep. Some of these are never empty. If they had come ashore in the daylight, we might have to look inside." "No time now," cried the raftman. "Shove off." And off they went at last, slowly at first, until they passed to the point of rocks where other elves stood to fence with off the poles, and then quicker and quicker as they caught to the main stream, and they went sailing away down and down towards the lake. They had escaped the dungeons of the king, and were through the wood, but whether alive or dead still remains to be seen.